And so this video begins on this beautiful winter morning beside the Clinch River. I parked at this park that has a trail that runs in between the road and the river here on the east side of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Look at those mountains out there. Wow. Beautiful. This is a great spot to begin the video. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if it's your first time. I am Tampa J. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today, we are going to, let's see, how do I want to put this? We are going to learn about Tennessee's atomic history. Oak Ridge, Tennessee was once called America's secret town. If you lived inside this town, you were ordered to be silent, because inside of your town they were building the atomic bomb. Partial Manhattan Project, top secret project, the enrichment of the uranium that was placed inside the little boy atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan during World War II. That took place right here, and today the U.S. government is still enriching uranium right here in Oak Ridge. Welcome to the atomic town of America. There is so much history to explore today. There are so many sites, signs, and museums devoted to this atomic history, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to educate ourselves along this journey of what exactly happened here during World War II and what is still happening here. I've been wanting to take this tour since I moved here, the atomic history of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. You've heard of the Oak Ridge Boys? Yeah, they got their name from this Oak Ridge. They were actually performing for the workers of the Enrichment Center, the K25 Center, which we're going to today, where they enrich the uranium. Side note, back to it. The Oak Ridge Boys were from Knoxville, but they were performing all of these concerts over here in Oak Ridge for those workers that they became known, hence the name, as the Oak Ridge Boys. That's something I know. Let's find out more. Let's go on this adventure together. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so stoked. There's much ahead. Let's begin. And as we're entering Oak Ridge, just imagine going back to the early 1940s. You couldn't just drive into the city of Oak Ridge. You were stopped by military police. If you did not belong here, you could not come in. And so we begin here on the east side of Oak Ridge. This is the Bear Creek checkpoint. This was the gate to get inside of the Y12 Enrichment location. The Y12 Center is still here and is still an active U.S. Department of Energy and Security center. This property over here, there's a fence, wire fence over here with signs. We are not allowed to progress, but we are allowed to check out this historic national landmark. There's a sign over here. Okay, so there's a photograph of this site. In the middle, there was a guard shack. If you look out here today, that guard shack is gone, but you can see this building, of course, over on the left-hand side of the road here. And here is the office. There's a couple of security guards. It says, known as the gatehouse, the checking station that you see before you was constructed in the post-World War II years. It was operated by the United States Atomic Energy Commission and controlled access to the Y12 plant from 1949 to 1953. As the city of Oak Ridge opened to the public on March 19, 1949, access to the Y12 plant remained restricted. Built with concrete and bulletproof windows, these silent sentinels serve as a reminder to the heightened security conditions that existed during early Cold War years. And it also goes on to say there are two more identical checking stations that guarded the K25 Center and the X10 graphite reactor, which is located on Bethel Valley Road. We will see one of those again today. We will pass another one of these checkpoints. I'll point them out to you. It looks like someone tried at some point to test the bulletproof glass. There's been bullets shot at this glass. It worked. Here's the hole where the guards could stick their rifles or guns out or whatever they needed to. Let's take a look in here. Wow. I wonder if this is ever open to the public. I don't think so, but there's a lot of stuff in here still. It's still got that 50s tile floor in there. Look at that. Actually 1940 to be precise. Pretty neat how you can just pull up here and walk around and check it out. They're encouraging it, but over here, they are encouraging you to do otherwise. There's a cardinal there. No trespassing. United States Department of Energy. By order of. We've got this barbed wire fence all the way around this property. No drone zone. Federal Aviation Administration. You do not want to fly a drone around here. So the U.S. Department of Energy is still in the direction past the guard shack. I'm going to drive down there to see how close we can get. We probably can't get that close, but they own all of this property. There's actually an access gate down here, just in front, about 100 yards in front of the guard shack. I don't want to get too close to that gate. Now, I don't think it's top secret anymore. I think it's public what they are doing here, but of course, you hear the rumors, you hear the conspiracy theories. There are a lot of rumors and pretty spooky ones about what's going on here today in Tennessee. Something about a black hole, real life Hawkins stuff. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there I heard. Just rumors, not starting rumors, just telling you about one. Someone created a black hole in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I don't know. It's on the internet, and you have to believe everything that's on the internet, right? Okay, we come to New Hope Center, History Center, Portal 13, right here amongst the National Lab, the Y12 complex. All right, we're gonna head in. This is a nice drive up here, not too far from the gate. It looks very big. This site goes way back. Okay, Y12 New Hope Center. It looks like they are closed. Visiting hours, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4 p.m. So no public access after hours or on holidays. So we actually cannot check out the museum today. I'll have to come back for this one. And I'm slowly passing by the current gates to the Y12 National Complex. Right up there is the current security checkpoint. And I've seen a couple of these throughout Knoxville. The Y12 Credit Union, named after the Y12 site. These are all over East Tennessee. Now we come to the northeast side of Oak Ridge. Just entered this property. It's Oak Ridge Unitarian Universalist Church, across from the Appalachian Underwriters. That's a heck of a building there. Out beyond this sign is the reason I'm right here. There's a historic marker. Castle on the hill. The administration building for the Clinton Engineering Works opened March 15th, 1943, dubbed the Castle. It became headquarters for the Manhattan Engineering District, United States Army Corps of Engineers, from which all Manhattan Project construction was directed between 1943 to 1945. The Atomic Energy Commission assumed control of this property on January 1st, 1947. The castle was demolished and replaced by the federal building in 1970. There's a federal building right back here. I think you can see some of it. All right, I came up the hill, United States Department of Energy, Joe L. Evans. I don't know how close we can get, but I think we can drive pretty close to it. Yeah, look at this. We can roll right in front of the U.S. Department of Energy. It said on that sign it was erected in 1970. You can tell it's got that mid-century shape going right there. Look at that. It's a pretty building. Again, thinking of Stranger Things. Kind of looks like Hawkins' lab a little bit, although that one's much taller. Looks like up here is the entrance to the building. You can't get too close. It looks like it's sitting vacant. Wow, it's like going back in time right there. Just need an old 70s car sitting out front. It's a really cool building. U.S. Department of Energy. The castle. This is where they planned the Manhattan Project as far as the construction of it. All right, so I just came a little ways up. We left off over there. That's where the hill and the federal building was, right here on the Oak Ridge Turnpike. Notice this is Bus Terminal Road. Check this out. This was an old bus terminal that was fabricated. Now it's a shopping center. It's called Security Square, by the way. Here's a little screenshot of the sign. See what's going on there. This was a bus terminal built for the people during the Manhattan Project. This was the Central Bus Terminal. And you can see in this picture here, there was a ton of buses that would come in and out of Oak Ridge at this very point, with a large military reservation of over 59,000 acres. Transportation services were essential to ensure residents and workers could navigate around the area. Central Bus Terminal, constructed on the Oak Ridge Turnpike in February 1944, was the first to be open within the residential area, followed by Jefferson Terminal in May 1944. Bus services were also available to areas off the reservation by providing transportation for both work and recreational needs of employees and residents. And it goes on to give more detail, specifically the numbers. It does say on the last sentence, in March of 1944, school bus services provided transportation to 500 children daily, which increased to 7,700 children by December of 1946. That gives you an idea of how many people were working on the Manhattan Project. All right, in the parking lot of the Oak Ridge Public Library, still off of Oak Ridge Turnpike. We came from that direction. We're actually heading west towards the K25 History Center eventually. Before we get there, we're going to see a lot of stuff though. This is the Secret City Commemorative Walk. It looks like it was erected in 2005, dedicated to the thousands who founded Oak Ridge between 1942 and 1949. Secret City Commemorative Walk. The Secret City Commemorative Walk is a gift from the Rotary Club. All the names right here, wow, there's a lot of names there, help fund the Secret City Commemorative Walk. There is so many names here before the walkway. Check this out. It's really pretty, even in the winter. No leaves on the trees. Okay, all the founders. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 walls full of the founders. And on each of these 4 walls, all of the founders of America's secret town. And there is so much signage around this rotunda. Signs over there, signs over there. I'm going to do my best to highlight. There's also a protest going on out there. They have signs that say honk for democracy, and there's a lot of people executing their right and honking. So just to explain what's going on in the background so you know, we are here amongst the Oak Ridge Public Library. Oak Ridge, Secret City. In November 1942, Army engineers were ordered to build a town for 13,000 people. A year later, their target grew to 42,000, and the actual population reached 75,000. In September 1945, almost 3 times the city's 2005 population, shown on no maps and known through the war not as Oak Ridge, but as Clinton Engineer Works. It was truly a secret city. And as I'm working my way around the circle here, here's another plaque. It says Oak Ridge and the Manhattan Project. In August 1945, citizens of the secret city learned, most of them for the first time, that their hard work had made possible a weapon that was instrumental in bringing peace to a world anguished by brutal 6-year war in which 54 million people died. The remarkable story of the Oak Ridge 1.1 billion role in the Manhattan Project, the huge national effort to develop the atomic bomb before Hitler's Germany is summarized in this Secret City Commemorative Walk. The war news during the first part of the year was dreadful. German submarines were wreaking havoc with our shipping in the Atlantic. The Japanese were winning in the Pacific, and the Germans were driving across North Africa. In late May, a scouting team picked out this East Tennessee site. It had available electric power from TVA, that's the Tennessee Valley Authority, good cooling water, railroad service, had few people, had very favorable terrain, and a source of labor nearby. In September General Groves drove the 15 miles from Elza to Galler Ferry, I think it's Galler or Gaylor Ferry, might be the other, and issued orders to acquire the land for the Manhattan Project. In 1943, General Leslie R. Groves, commander of the Manhattan Project, delegated to Colonel Kenneth D. Nichols the responsibility for administering what was to become a $2.2 billion effort. The colonel had his headquarters here in a rambling 7-wing frame building where the federal building now stands that became known as the Castle. 1943, the year opened with fierce fighting on battlefronts all over the world. Stalingrad, North Africa, and the South Pacific. Here, February saw groundbreaking for Oak Ridge's Y12 plant and the X-10 graphite reactor. Starting April 1st, armed guards manned the gates to the Clinton Engineer Works. President Roosevelt froze all wages and prices to forestall black markets. By summer, the area swarmed with 20,000 construction workers building the plants and new city, and August saw the opening of town's first drugstore, grocery, movie theater, and post office. In the fall, enough of Y12 in the town had been completed, so the scientists, engineers, and thousands of support people began pouring in from all over the nation. So this talks about the K25 gaseous diffusion plant, which we will be going to, so I don't want to get too far ahead of that history. And the plaque that reads 1944 says new arrivals to this fenced-in area called the Clinton Engineer Works were amazed at the extensive construction at every turn. It goes on to say how this area boomed with certain types of houses called flat tops, alphabet homes, and the walk continues beyond the circle. We actually are here at 1946. This is pretty cool. You can get all of the history of Oak Ridge as far as atomic here in this little park. This was the world's first fully peacetime year since 1938. Cities everywhere began struggling to change things back to normal. Oak Ridge was different. We never had been normal. Things here were also in a state of flux because of the success of the K25 diffusion process meant the closing down of Y12's process with huge layoffs. Had to fire a lot of people. In 1947, although many residents still felt Oak Ridge was a wartime town, they were now encouraged to view their city as possibly becoming a permanent community. This transition was kicked off January 1st when the Manhattan Engineering District handed off control to the government's atomic energy program to the civilian U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. And here's the main signage. You can see this from the road. Check it out. This is what you see on the corner here. Secret City Commemorative Walk. All right, I could do a whole video on just the signs out here. I think it would take me a few hours to read everything that is written. If you're ever in Oak Ridge, right off the parkway, stop and check it out. All right, I was on my way to my next stop and I saw this and did a U-turn. Look at this gigantic public pool. It's got some age to it too, and there's a history sign right here. Look at this. The swimming hole, a recreational oasis inside the secret city. And here's a picture that looks like it was taken opposite, shooting back this way. Look at all these houses up here. Look at all these people. This is a very old pool. Before the Manhattan Project, a spring-fed lake known as the Duck Pond once provided water for horses and cattle along Emory Road, an early route used in the settlement of Middle Tennessee. During the World War II, a town sprung up seemingly overnight, complete with shopping centers, movie theaters, bowling alleys, sporting facilities, and recreation halls. Residents of the Clinton Engineer Works could escape the summer heat and enjoy their leisure cooling off across the street from Grove Center. There is some uncertainty as to when the pool was constructed, although photographic records indicate that the concrete pool was poured in June 1945. This 58,630 square foot swimming pool holds 2.2 million gallons of water and is reputed as being one of the largest spring-fed swimming pools in the United States. In 1992, the pool underwent renovations and the wooden raft island was replaced with a permanent structure. Okay, there you go. And roughly 400 gallons of paint was used to recoat the pool. Okay, there's the former wooden raft, all the kids out there on it. It's a cool picture. It says swimming hole before construction of the pool. So this was before the pool was built. This was the natural swimming hole. This was 1944. And up on the ridge, you can see these houses and this old building. These houses were actually up there on that ridge. These houses in the photo, it was actually taken from this vantage point. The trees are much higher now, but those houses were out there, and some of that brick building, which is now a school, is off in the distance. So yeah, this is accurate. This is about the same view as you see today. There's still some telephone poles here too as well. It's pretty gnarly. All right, now we come to the Manhattan Project National Historic Park, or Historical Park. U.S. Department of the Interior, Department of Energy. This sign is in front of this building, which is the Oak Ridge Children's Museum. All right, I spotted another historic sign out here beyond the entrance to the Children's Museum. Check this out. Oak Ridge Schools, build it and they will come and stay. I like that they're quoting one of my favorite movies, or referencing it, Field of Dreams. The rapidly increasing population of Oak Ridge during the early 1940s led to the high demand for housing. At one point, homes within the secret city were being completed every 30 minutes. Oak Ridge needed a school system to meet the educational needs of the community. And it's showing, it looks like Highland View Elementary School, 1944. I believe it was right here on this property. Okay, cool. The building you see before you today was Highland View Elementary, one of the few remaining original Oak Ridge school buildings. So I think this is still part of it here. Here's a picture of it here. Okay, yeah, this is, we're standing like right here. This is looking back that way down the street. So there you go. So this was part of the old elementary school. Now the Children's Museum. The Manhattan Project exhibit is within the Children's Museum. It's $10, all ages. I paid up my admission fee. Here's the map. And look at this right off the bat. Got some taxidermy, giant polar bear and moose. This is Alaska. Please don't touch Nanook. It's got a name. The polar bear is on loan from the Tennessee State Museum. All right. I didn't think I was going to tour an awesome museum today like this, but here we are. I'll have to come back sometime and highlight this whole museum, maybe do a whole video on it. There's a lot of cool stuff to see. All right, I'm going up this hallway to the specific Manhattan Project area. Along the way, I'm noticing this timeline through the hallway. There is a point about the Manhattan Project, and right here there's an old typewriter. It says, should President Roosevelt approve the Manhattan Project to build the first atomic bomb? And there's a picture over here of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Here's a photograph of the K25 gaseous diffusion plant, the site which we're heading next. And at that time, that U-shaped building there was the largest building in the entire United States. And this map over here shows the Manhattan Project sites, not just Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Los Alamos, New Mexico, Hanford, Washington, and that's it, just those three. I didn't know that. I knew about the one in New Mexico. This was the smallest site and nerve center for the Manhattan Project. There, physicists designed and tested the bomb. In Washington, it was the largest of three sites, was built on the Columbia River. 8 atomic reactors were built to produce large quantities of plutonium. Wait a minute, plutonium. Are you saying this thing's nuclear? Secret science. What you see here, what you do here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. This is a sign that hung around Oak Ridge. Check this out. These are workers leaving the Y12 plant. Notice a lot of ladies. Back in the day, men were off fighting, World War II, of course. Because of the secrecy of the project, workers were required to wear ID badges that had photographs and indicated their level of security clearance. And this display shows 1942 to 1945 photographs of different houses. Semesto House, that was referenced back at the park. Flat tops. K House, some of these houses are still standing today. Apartments. Dormitories. TDUs, which those were built up above the pool, we saw in that photo. SED barracks, those are more like army barracks there. Trailers. And hutments. Should people come from across the nation to work on an unknown project without full knowledge of its scope and purpose, thousands of top scientists, engineers, and military personnel were ordered to Oak Ridge. However, many times that number of support workers were also needed. Construction workers, secretaries, educators, and others decided to come for many reasons. Patriotism, the promise of high-paying jobs, and the chance to help end the war. Once here, they enjoyed the mountains of East Tennessee and the sense of mission among fellow workers. All right, this display talks about the bomb. Should President Harry Truman authorize the dropping of atomic bombs on Japan? President Harry S. Truman was in office 100 days when he was faced with a difficult decision. World War II was in its 6th year and over 50 million people had died. President Truman had only recently learned of the Manhattan Project. War had ended in Europe on May 7, 1945, but it still continued in the Pacific. Secretary of War Henry Stimson cautioned President Truman to use a bomb wisely. Today's prime fact is war. Our great task is to bring this war to a prompt and successful conclusion. We may assume that our new weapon puts in our hands overwhelming power. It is our obligation to use the power with the best wisdom we command. President Harry S. Truman wrote, "I wanted to weigh all the possibilities and implications. Here was the most powerful weapon of destruction ever devised, and perhaps it was more than that. It was not an easy decision to make." The parade, March 19th, 1949. This is video footage. The gates opened to grand celebrations. A 3-mile parade moved through Oak Ridge to cheers of Oak Ridge residents, politicians, dignitaries, and movie stars attended dances, parties, and ceremonies. So here you are, all this build-up. This top secret town can finally release the secret and celebrate. Ceremony at Elza Gate with simulated mushroom cloud. They simulated the atomic bomb there in celebration. Look at all these people up here on this platform. They look like media. Look at all the people there. All right, so this, you can see the age right here, especially the floor and the doors. This was actually the school. So this is part of the school that we were mentioning on the sign down there. Pretty neat. Looks like you can have birthday parties in here. There's a whole wall going down this way. Talks about the Oak Ridge World War II secret city. A lot of photographs. Early Oak Ridge has been called the city behind a fence. That's also one of its nicknames. Again, thinking of Hawkins. There is so much to see in this little museum. They've got like a demonstration of a military gate set up here. Gates to the city. Okay, yeah, this is all about the gates. So these were the pre-existing gates. The Bear Gate that we just were at was not there yet, as we learned out there. This is the Solway Gate, the Edgemore Gate, the Elza Gate, Oliver Springs Gate, Blair Gate. So many roads into Oak Ridge, gotta have so many gates. And the Gallagher Gate. And here's a map of where all those gates were located. Trying to pinpoint, okay, K25's out here, that's where we're going. Looks like the X10 site was over here, and we started out the video at the Y12 gate. There you go. And this is where we are now, towards the city of Oak Ridge. So most of the sites were this direction. So this room over here is the Ed Westcott room. Ed Westcott was one of the main photographers of the Manhattan Project. This is really cool. There's a tower you can climb up there guarding the secret city. the city behind the fence. Ed took all of the photographs that you see on display in this room. There's the Solway Gate again. Even Santa Claus gets a security check at Elza Gate. They're checking Santa's bag. And here's a picture of Ed Westcott right here with his camera. His speed graphic camera, and on display, check this out. Ed's Graflex speed graphic camera was supplied to him by the Army Corps of Engineers, to document all aspects of Oak Ridge during the war. It can be seen in 2 of photos as well. So this is his actual camera that he's holding right there. That's cool. All of the pictures you see, I'm assuming, were taken with that camera. We've got a flare up here, parachute flare. Looks like a bomb to me. That's a giant flare. And we mentioned earlier, one of the houses was the Cemesto. Here we have a representation of breakfast in 1945 inside a Cemesto. Look at that. That looks yummy. Eggs and toast, yeah, porridge, muffins. And adjacent to the breakfast table, we have a living room setting. We've got some phones. We've got, looks like a soda over there. What is that, a Dr. Pepper? Can't really tell. Oh, it's a double cola. Look at the double cola. We've got a football on the couch. Pretty neat. Also, that's a pothos plant. And here is a watchtower that you can climb up. The kids were just taking advantage of it. That's fun. It's like a treehouse. Highland View Elementary School patrol boy helps students onto their bus right here on this property. That's pretty neat. You got the basketball goal there. Shep Lauder, supervisor of recreation and welfare, instructs his charges on the finer points of basketball. Look at the basketball coach. You've got a vintage Christmas setting over here in the corner. Look at that. It's Christmas all year round. Pretty neat. You got the Christmas tree over here too. This is over here in the corner. Just kind of hiding. So much stuff packed in here. A clearer picture of the K25 plant. Again, that's where we're heading next. All right, this is cool. Look at this. In this case, it says, can you guess how many cans are in this block? This is a block of aluminum cans. Can you guess? Take a guess. Looks like we pull up that piece of paper there to find out. Pretty neat. All right, let's see how many. Did you guess? Did you comment? Play a little game. Don't cheat. 1,700 aluminum cans. It weighs 60 pounds. 1,700 soda cans. I'm assuming there's beer cans in there too as well. I would have never guessed that. 1,700. All right, I'll have to come back here and show you. Just do a whole video on this museum sometime. I'm going to show you one more thing before we get going. These are the movie theaters that were here in Oak Ridge back during the Manhattan Project, and they've got an old movie poster here. Willie and Joe are on the screen. Bill Maldini's up front, starring David Wayne as Joe and Tom Ewell as Willie. And then over here are pictures of the local movie theaters. Looks like, okay, Center Theater was inside of the United States Post Office. This is the Jefferson Theater, very small. Looks like they built that overnight. Looks like a military theater on a base. The Ridge Theater. I wonder if that's still there. And then last but not least, it's a big one here. Looks like this is the Grove Theater. This was just down the street. You would not know that that was in there. I look forward to coming back. I barely showed you anything inside the Oak Ridge Children's Museum. Much ahead. Save that for another time. And I'm starting to see some of these houses that were built back in the 1940s. They all have a similar shape. Some have been updated. Some have been expanded. Check them out. All similar shape, all built in the 1940s. All right, so as we're heading west out of town along the highway, we have come across another set of gates identical to the one I showed you in the beginning of the video. There's a historic sign here that says Oak Ridge 1943 was created as the residential center for the Clinton Engineering Works. It tells a lot of history, which we've already said. On January 1st, 1947, the The Atomic Energy Commission assumed control of the community. In 1959, Oak Ridge became an incorporated municipality. So these were the gates leading out to the K25 Center, which will be the next stop. It's just a few miles, actually. Yeah, it's just a couple miles away. Now again, these were built in the late 40s. These were after the gates that were here during the Manhattan Project. They are identical, Y12 and K25, same structure, same gates, very busy. All right, so welcome to the K25 Overlook and Visitor Center. And here we are, the K25 Overlook and Visitor Center. And this historic sign sits between the Overlook building, the Overlook, and out beyond us, the former area of the K25 facility. There's a ton of buildings out there today, including the K25 Center, which we will be going to. As a part of the Manhattan Project, the K25 plant was designed to house work on separating U-235 and U-238, those are types of uranium, through the gaseous diffusion process. At the time of the construction, it was the largest industrial complex in history. Plant construction began in 1943 and was completed in 1945. Over 25,000 construction personnel worked on this plant. The main building exceeded 44 acres in size. That U-shaped building sat right out in there. There's some newer buildings here today, including the K25 Visitor Center and museums, which we're going to go to. But right out there is where the uranium was enriched for the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer was here. All right, I'm going to head into this building. I think it's open. Oh yeah, here you go. Wow. We've got it all to ourselves. Got a huge timeline right here in the center of the room. The timeline actually begins here pre-war. Protons found. Ernest Rutherford discovered protons. We'll go down a little bit. Here you go. 1940, war escalates. 41, Pearl Harbor. 1942, atomic research. January 19th, Roosevelt approves atomic weapons. 1943, Hanford reactors. Groves selects Hanford, Washington as site for full-scale plutonium production. And then right here, September 16th, 1943, Jones Construction begins work right here on the K25 plant. A 44-acre and almost a mile in length K25 replaced the Pentagon as the world's largest building. Was right out there. Pretty impressive. In 1945, January 20th, K25 was fully operational just 16 months after construction began. It's a cool photo right there. It's further away so you can see how big the building was. And all the way down to 2008, it says in 2008, the K25 demolition began. That wasn't very long ago. I thought it was torn down a lot longer ago. December 2013, the final wall of K25 was torn down. In 2014, Obama authorizes historical park. President Obama signs the national authorization, including authorization for the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. On December 22nd, 2015, Oak Ridge National Laboratory produces 50 grams of plutonium-238 to provide power for NASA and other missions, restoring capability that's been dormant for nearly 30 years. And I also saw on the way out here, so as I was researching a little bit before coming out here this morning, this popped up. This was published just yesterday. Oak Ridge to receive $1 billion uranium enrichment facility that's going to create 200 jobs. The governor announced a major nuclear investment as the Tennessee lab continues 80-year legacy of scientific breakthroughs. This was just announced yesterday. It says it will be located here on the historic K25 uranium enrichment site. Whoa, that's weird. I just decided to come out here this morning. I was going to go do something else. Little did I know that they announced yesterday that they're going to be building another uranium enrichment plant on the former K25 plant site or near it. I wonder where it's going to go. And here we are in search for the K25 History Center. We enter the K25 complex known as the Heritage Center, main entrance, Heritage Center Boulevard. Just imagine it's 1943. Oppenheimer's here. They're enriching uranium. Pretty cool. I think this might be the Heritage Center right over here. I'm not so sure. We're gonna drive around a little bit. It's actually right here on my right. Heritage Center. A very mid-century looking building. I don't know if it's open. We turned left on Aluminum Street. Show you what's going on here. Okay, there's nothing going on there. This building's been restored, but it's pretty old. We're supposed to take a left right here. Check this out. Yeah, very mid-century. We take a left here on Enrichment Street, and we head down. The K25 Center is just past that fire station on the right. And check out this old sign sitting across from the turn here on Enrichment Boulevard. Whoops. It says something up there. I don't know if I can make it out. It's an old bulletin board. Can you make out the letters? It's pretty gnarly. Yeah, this is one of the old K25 guard shacks. Now sits before, look at this, City of Oak Ridge Fire Station number 4. Okay, I have parked in the K25 Visitor Center, or History Center parking lot. Looks like the building's right over there past the trees. Wanted to walk over here across the street. That sign on that building says Y12 Emergency Operations Center. There's some government trucks just sitting out front. Wonder what's going on in there. They do have a charger for your electric car out here and some billboard signs along the sidewalk leading up to a building that says K25. That's actually the fire station. And look over here. It's a newer looking building. Are you working every day? Stay on the job. Finish the job. We'll swap foxhole home with outside exposure. Neighbor times noisy. Who, me? Yes, you. Keep mum about this job. Some of the billboards that people would see as they were walking into the plant. All right, so let's see what's going on here. We've got a garden. Obviously, we got a giant object out here with a plaque on it. It's calling our name. It's gigantic. It says, the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge office, K25 site, East Tennessee Technology Park. As part of a contract with the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge Operations, the BNFL Incorporated project was responsible for the decontamination and decommissioning of the 3 gaseous diffusion buildings, K33, K31, and K29. Within those 3 buildings were over 1,500 converters. This specific converter is similar to the converters found in the facilities formerly known as the K25 site. This converter was used to enrich uranium, which required increasing the percentage of the U-235 isotope. Located inside the converter were barrier tubes that acted as filters used to separate the heavier U-238 isotope from the lighter U-235 isotope. To enrich even a small quantity of uranium, this process had to be repeated thousands of times. Welcome to the K25 Interpretive Center and Site Exploration. Here's the building right here. If you look at the mountains, check out this mountain up here. Okay, take a mental image here. Look at this big point over here. Believe it's that mountain way out there in the distance. Wow, okay, so yeah, this is the former site out beyond us. You can still see on the ground, if you look at an aerial shot, you can still see the shape of the building. So that tall mountain way out there is in that photograph. So yeah, it was right here beyond us. I'm sure we'll learn more about that. This is a cool building. It's a lot bigger than it looks. Yeah, here's the aerial photo. Largest building in the world at the time. Oh, okay. Wow. Hello.
Hi.
All right, guys, so there is the History Center and here the Interpretive Center. It was a $15 fee, access to both. Both close at 5 o'clock. They said if I ran out of time, I could come back within 7 days. This is not what I expected, but this is really cool. Up there is an observation deck so we can see out over the former K25 site. So we're gonna go check that out, and then we'll head over to the History Center. They've got a stage set up here. Obviously, they have events, they host events. This is really neat. Very nuclear. Look at that. There's also an old Willys Jeep sitting in here. 1945 CJ2 Alpha Jeep. Donated by Croet, C-R-O-E-T. K25. A massive undertaking. There's a lot of stuff to see over here. Oh, wow. This is really nice. We got it all to ourselves. There's a model of the K25 Center. Oh, cool. You can see where it was. K25 scale model, massive, even at this size. This is 1/160 scale model. It was created with the attention and accuracy of referencing design drawings and photographs taken when K25 was in full operation. That was a massive building. All right, so I'm gonna try to put this into perspective for you the best way I can. So you see this portion, this giant building going all the way back to the smaller one in between. This square right here, think about the square and this portion of the building. That portion of the building would have started right here to the right of this road. You're gonna go all the way back. So basically the concrete that you see here in the center is the middle. There was no building here. That little square building at the top of the model, which is right here now, right there, all the way back. See this square? That's where that building was. So now you can understand that right over there beyond the road was the building there. This is the center. And then over there, this field over here was the other building on the right. Massive U shape. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that was that giant building back there. Gigantic, can't even get it into frame. This is a very wide lens. Here's a look from the side. Can only imagine. It says right here, hot jobs, system of systems. It's like we lift this up. Today we think of a hot job as one in high demand, but at K25, a hot job was something different. The cell floor featured thousands of high horsepower motors, pumps, and high capacity compressors that circulated the uranium hexafluoride gas, which generated a lot of heat. There was no air conditioning on the cell floor, so workers would sometimes be soaked with sweat after only 10 minutes of work. Building fly around. Start. Oh, that's cool. Gaseous diffusion building. Okay, okay, this makes more sense to see it like this virtually. It's pretty neat. All right, here's inside the building. Looks like we can speed it up. All right, now we're inside the building. Look at this. There's those reactors. Located above each cell was an instrument and control panel to measure process conditions. Turning farmland into the industrial complex required building roads, bridges, and railroads. A railroad spur was laid stretching over 10 miles from Blair, Tennessee to the K25 site. And some of that railroad, we passed over it to get here. There it is out there. There's some train cars on it still. As you can see, there's more cars over there too. I believe they're just sitting out here. All right, I came down the bottom. We are in the basement. Check this out. This goes all the way to the top. There's the steps we just came down. It says the story of stories. Here you go, you got like a schematic. So this is what was going on inside the building. The process. Okay, so right here, this is what we're seeing. Just this segment is right here on the wall. And there's picnic tables right here before the old K25 Center as well, below the observation deck. Nice spot to eat. Hopefully the uranium is not still lingering as you're biting into your PB&J. Ooh. That's creepy. I have now exited the observation center here. Pretty amazing. As I was walking out, I saw that they had several books for sale on the history of K25 and Oak Ridge. Specifically, they had a cookbook and also a book just devoted to the history of the housing here in Oak Ridge, which was pretty fascinating. Now it's time to head to the History Center. It's right there. All right, so I stepped foot inside of the museum. I checked in with my ticket and I was handed security clearance. This is to scan throughout the museum. This card entitles the bearer access to secrets of the K25 Manhattan Project, and they're about ready to do a film over here, so I'm gonna set in on it. Right there?
It's called security clearance portal.
Oh, okay.
That's for you, and there were 6 more in the back, but it has lots of history on this. This is a
Welcome to the
one.
K25.
Oh, nice, thank you.
You're preparing to enter a site that is crucial to the war effort. Security is our highest priority.
All right, here we go, into the theater. There's that sign again.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Whoa.
please be seated.
That's cool.
Lights. What we are about to discuss is one of the most closely guarded enterprises of the war. It is about using the power of the atom as a weapon. No mention of this has been allowed under the newspaper and radio code of the Office of Censorship. What you learn today, you can tell no one.
Okay.
Roll the film.
This is cool.
Our recent Allied victory in Europe put an end to a secret threat few people knew about. The Nazis had been developing an atomic weapon. In the early 1940s, at this facility in Norway, the Nazis secretly manufactured heavy water, which was a key ingredient in the German atomic bomb research program. Germany and the U.S. had both been racing to harness the power of the atom. In early 1943, the United States War Department started construction on 2 enormous processing plants, Y12 and X10, here at the Clinton Engineer Works in Tennessee. Construction on 2 more secret plants, K25 and S50, was started later in 1943 and in 1944. Another massive processing plant was constructed out of the Hanford Engineer Works in the state of Washington. A special design and testing laboratory was created in an isolated area in the vicinity of Santa Fe, New Mexico. This atomic bomb project is known as the Manhattan Project. It is directed by U.S. Army engineer General Leslie Groves. In 1943, on a snowy night in Norway, members of the Norwegian underground slipped into this valley and sabotaged the Nazi heavy water production plant. The Nazis rebuilt it. American bombers hit it again, crippling development of the Nazis' atomic research. It's been said that the Germans came within 6 months of splitting the atom and possibly destroying the world in the process. With the ending of the war in Europe, we are no longer in an atomic bomb race with the Germans, but we are still at war with Japan. The war continues to escalate, with fighting in the Pacific Islands, East Indies, China, Borneo, the Philippines, New Guinea, the Marianas, involving Allied forces from the U.S., the United Kingdom, China, British India, Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands, Mexico, and the Philippines. Our Pacific forces are fighting on the sea, on islands, and in the air. Loss of life is horrific. On the island of Iwo Jima, over 6,000 U.S. Marines were killed, and 22,000 were wounded. Japanese losses are estimated at over 20,000 men. The Battle of Okinawa saw nearly 110,000 Japanese and Okinawan troop deaths, with American ground troops suffering 75,000 casualties. These casualty numbers are staggering. Without doubt, the continuation of the war will result in the sacrifice of countless lives. And there's no end in sight. Japanese Emperor Hirohito, his advisor Lord Keeper Koichi Kido, and their military leaders must be persuaded to end this horrible war. A demonstration of the power of an atom bomb may change the course of this war. We don't know the impact of this weapon. It is not ready yet, but we know it will work.
That's why you were here. We need more good workers to help us build this bomb to end this war. Questions?
What do we tell our wives and family?
Nothing about what you are really doing. You can say you are helping the war effort, or that your work is secret, or that you don't talk about your work. There are only a handful of people who know what this plant manufactures. Absolute secrecy is necessary. Any more questions?
Oh, sir.
Why build a plant here in the middle of nowhere?
Next slide, please. This is Leslie Groves. General Groves is the leader of the Manhattan Project. General Groves identified the primary sites for developing an atomic weapon. For secrecy and safety, some of these sites needed to be remote. The site also needed major power and water. So, Clinton Engineer Works was located here in the Clinch River Valley of Tennessee. The town is now known as Oak Ridge. It has been critical to our national defense and to world safety to develop this site. It was a hardship for residents to relocate, but absolutely necessary for the war effort. There are 4 plant sites here at Oak Ridge, including K25, Y12, X10, and S50. There's a large residential area called Town Site and construction camps at K25 called Happy Valley and Wheat Colony. What we've built at the K25 site is the world's largest industrial building, all for one mission: to produce enriched uranium through a process called gaseous diffusion. Our objective is to use this material to end this terrible war. Other questions?
What if this doesn't work?
For the safety of our nation and to save millions of lives, we cannot fail. It has to work. Welcome to K25. Be sure to always carry your security clearance pass. Use it to access additional information. Lights.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Oh, wow, the doors are opening over
To the
there.
door to your right.
That's cool. We entered the museum. And right outside the doors is a giant room all the way around, different displays. A top secret mission. The Manhattan Project was the largest industrial project ever conducted. Over here it starts in this display case with the history of the area before the time of the construction, the first residents up here. European explorers came to East Tennessee in the 1500s and encountered Native American tribes. Oak Ridge is within the territory claimed by the Overhill Cherokees. In 1791, the Cherokee Nation signed a treaty with the President George Washington, transferring a piece of land to the government for the settlement. After a second treaty in 1798, the Clinch River Valley became United States territory and part of Tennessee. Also, it talks about the wheat. A community remembered wheat school built in 1916 was then state-of-the-art with running water, indoor plumbing, and large gymnasium. And down here in the corner, built in 1901, George Jones Memorial Baptist, not that George Jones, is the last of the wheat buildings. The church, which can be seen from State Road 58, is located off the Blair Road. I saw that church on the way in. George Jones Memorial Baptist Church is the sole remaining building for the former wheat community. Each year, former wheat residents gather for a reunion. They ring up the original bell from Wheat School displayed below in the celebration. Oh wow, there's the bell from the church. Looks like this kid made a makeshift comic book stand. It's a cool photograph. A lot of photographs I remember seeing back in the other museum at the Children's Museum. And look, there's the temporary bus station. We saw where that was. And look at this, a recreation of the little boy, the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. 16 hours ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima, an important Japanese army base. That bomb had more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. It is an atomic bomb. August 6, 1945, nicknamed the little boy, a 60,000-foot mushroom cloud emerged over the sky in Japan. Pretty intense history, man. 50 million lives claimed during World War II. Imagine how much that changed things. How much loss. What would the world have been like without both world wars? It's blowing my mind to think about it. The first nuclear weapon, little boy gun-type fission weapon, was fueled by the uranium-235 produced at the S50, Y12, and K25 plants right here in Clinton Engineer Works. Initial production was slowed because of technical issues in the plants, but by spring 1945, however, performance had improved and scientists were certain there would be enough uranium-235 to fuel the atomic weapon. Here you go, the Enola Gay returns from its mission. I've seen the Enola Gay, it's in the Smithsonian. That is the plane that dropped the little boy. And the USS Indianapolis was the ship that transported it across the Pacific so the Enola Gay could pick it up and drop it. And if you know anything about the USS Indianapolis, that was the boat that sank, and that's when 700 men went into the water. The Jaws story, the true story. But that was the ship. That was their mission. But we delivered the bomb. There's a lot of stuff to see in here. This is immaculate. It's amazing. Path to Enrichment. It starts out here with, it's a whole timeline here. Mining. 85% of uranium was mined in the Belgian Congo. Had no idea. It talks about refinement, separation, the race of uranium. This is what happened here. Enrichment methods. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. Here's some items from the trade shops at K25, an old table with some tools on it. Here's a picture. Here you go. Beyond the process buildings. The process buildings at the Oak Ridge Gaseous Diffusion Plant relied on many support facilities located around the site. Metalworking, glass blowing, instrument maintenance, and electrical shops were essential to the plant. So all these artifacts in the center here are neatly labeled, numbered, and here you are. Here's the description. This right here is number 11. It is a classified burn barrel used to secure discarded classified documents for later disposal. So you would drop your classified documents in there and someone would burn them. It's a mailbox. There's a lot of artifacts from K25 in this case down the wall. This sign right here says there were 216 buildings on site. This is an old door from the power plant. Power and Electric Manhattan District history describes the powerhouse as the largest single steam electric power production plant constructed to date in a single operation. There's some items from the infirmary. There's a stretcher up there. Over here, check this out. It's a table. Check out this nurse. And behind her, there's a door that says, "No loafing." This means anyone. Check this out. Some of the lockers. We've got Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, Popeye, Sylvester and Tweety, Sucker and Succotash. And look at this, Casper. These lockers with cartoon characters hand painted on the doors were used to store street clothes and personal items for workers. The workers at K25 brought in various personal belongings to work. Some of these items were authorized while others were forbidden. While seemingly simple, these objects tell a larger story of the people who worked here. Everything in this museum is neatly displayed and organized and described. Check this out. This is an old menu. Look at the prices. Looks like number 12. This is frame sign cafeteria prices. So this is from the K25 cafeteria. Old work suit here. Check out the old Kleenex box. Pretty neat stuff. And then over here, look at this. There's a vehicle in here. It's the K25 fire engine. It's pretty awesome. I've never seen something like that. It's got a nozzle up there, and right here is the intake. This is the pump, the engine pump. This is where they would hook it up from the hydrant. This unit was used to spray borated water to stop a critical uncontrolled nuclear reaction caused by radioactive materials being too close together. Since there was never a criticality at K25, this unit was never used, thankfully, for its intended purpose. Alright, so when I think of a nuclear facility, this is the type of stuff I think of. Check out the hazmat suit. Look at this. Prototype clothing. This looks like Doc Brown's box here. Back to the Future. K25 emergency manual. That would be fun to thumb through. Here is a recreation of operations control. Communication was key. By 1954, the Oak Ridge gaseous diffusion plant had expanded to include 5 connected process buildings, including the original K25 building, to create one continual enrichment cascade. With such a large site, each building had to be in communication with the others. Further, each individual process building was massive with multiple levels and areas. Centralized communication proved critical in coordinating production and maintenance in all buildings as well as all levels within those buildings. This right here is a control panel. This panel was used for training operators to use the instrumentation and valving in the process buildings. And we got a timeline in this room. Looks like it goes all the way prior to World War II, all the way to 1995.
If you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
Tear down this wall. I've actually stood at the Berlin Wall and in front of that gate. There it goes.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And here's a photograph of them deconstructing the K25 building. This would have been 2008. Here's another picture right here. Alright, so here is a little model of the converter we saw outside. This is the inside of the converter. Enriching uranium, empowering America. Okay. It's basically saying that uranium is still made here, will be made here, continue to be made here. It goes through a little history of it. Uranium is the company.
President Trump has even said that America's future, in part, depends on nuclear energy. And nuclear energy depends on having fuel. And enriched uranium is the fuel that will provide energy for this country. And for nuclear.
This is all about the progress of enriching uranium. It's still going on right here in Oak Ridge. And we just learned, they just announced yesterday, the state of Tennessee will be spending $1 billion on a new plant right here at K25. Look at that timing. Okay, so I made it up to the front. You can either come here or to the other facility first to pay for your ticket. They've got a nice gift shop over here. They've got shirts, they've got books. And I was just handed this map. This would have been handy to begin with. Visitor guide and map. This is all the Manhattan Project. Historical landmarks. And we've already visited most of them. There's the Children's Museum. There's the Gatehouse. There's the church that we were just learning about. Okay. This is really cool. This would have been handy at the beginning of the video, but hey, there's always next time. I like this shirt, Tennessee, like the periodic table of elements. Manhattan Project A-bomb shirt. You've got the Secret City Oak Ridge with a bomb and the fusion symbol. That's pretty cool. Here's the periodic table of the elements on a t-shirt. That's pretty neat. Bobblehead here. It's a WOW, woman ordnance worker. We can do it. The iconic We Can Do It poster. Even got it on socks here. Here's a book called Atomic City Girls by Janet Beard. Atomic Women, The Girls Who Stepped Out of Line, My Mother's War, The Girls of Atomic City. And you can get a mug with a picture of the K25 Center right on it there. It's pretty neat. Also, they got these cool coasters. Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And we're out. 15 minutes till close. 15 minutes till 5. I'll tell you what, I set out on this adventure a little before 11 o'clock. I did not think I would spend this much time on this video. It was so worth it. I'm not done yet. They were telling me as I was exiting that they are going to turn the U out there into a park. And they're going to be opening another store, which is being constructed right down here at the moment. And there's going to be a gift shop. So they're going to have another building out here devoted to the K25 history. So it's a hidden gem, man. This is some very unique history. Come check it out. There was so much in there I didn't share. Couldn't fit it all in one vlog. All right, well, it's blowing my mind right now. Here at the end of the street, Radiant R50, 900 Enrichment Street. Who knows, that's where they could build the next enrichment site. But at the end, check this out. Look at this old roadside. 7th Street. I could just drive out. I'm not gonna do it. But I could just drive out on the former K25 site right here. Nothing's stopping me. I don't recommend it, but it is tempting. Check that out. 7th Street. That sign is so old. Look at that. That is left over from the 40s. There's also an old sidewalk right there. I'm sure you could find that on like an aerial map, this street. Wow. K25. All right, now we're heading back into Oak Ridge. That was fascinating. I look forward to going back out to the K25 site sometime in the future. Barely scratched the surface with the history out there. Come check it out yourself. Tell them Tampa J sent you, of course. All right, so I am now parked in front of the Oak Ridge Senior Center, which is on the south side of the library. We were here earlier on the north side. We were checking out the Secret City commemorative walk. Here on the map, right here behind me, right here, right there on the map, AK Bissell Park, and inside here is the International, where's it at? Right there, International Friendship Bell. So I've come to check that out. And this is a nice park, big park. I can see the bell. It's right out there. The International Friendship Bell. Wonder if we can ring it. You know, upon walking up here, I was just joking that maybe we could ring the bell. I think we can. This was pretty gnarly. So I'm sure there's a sign over here to tell what is exactly going on. This is a really pretty monument, really. All right, I'm going to approach in a second. This is awesome. Right behind me, outside of the circle, is a Japanese rock garden. And there's a lot of stuff written. Champions of the Bell, a lot of names, peacemakers, Champions of the Bell, all the way down. There's stuff written. I'm trying to find the story behind this bell. I'm not seeing it. Landmark donors. All right, so I just did a quick Google search. Just Googled what is the story behind the Friendship Bell in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. This bell symbolizes peace and reconciliation between the U.S., United States, and Japan, commemorating Oak Ridge's role in the Manhattan Project, which built the atomic bomb for Hiroshima, and its transition to a city focused on peace and science. Conceived by citizens Ram and Shigeko Upuluri, I know I'm butchering that, sorry. It was designed in Oak Ridge and cast in Kyoto. It's the old Japanese capital. I've always wanted to go there. Serving as a monument to healing, remembrance, and shared future, with its bell ringing, marking anniversaries of the Hiroshima bombing. Okay. It goes on to say that 8,000 pounds of bronze. It features peaceful scenes inspired by both Tennessee and Japan along the symbols of war's tragedy connecting two cultures. Yeah, get a little closer so you can see the detail. That's really beautiful. Love that they did this. There you go. Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. Or, I'm sorry, Hiroshima. I think that's the proper pronunciation. It says peace right there. And then you have Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. It's really cool. You got a bird on the other side. You have a scene here. That looks like or Mount Fuji. And then over here it looks like the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. Check that out. That's really pretty. Okay. The moment we've all been waiting for. Wow, I barely did that too. One heck of a sound. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, you do not want to stand under there. That last one was pretty loud. I got close to the bell. You do not want to be under there. Oh man, that would probably burst your eardrums. It's pretty loud. I'm afraid it's just too darn loud. All right, guys. Well, I was trying to keep this kind of short today, but we just kept finding a lot of history. Oak Ridge might be the biggest little city in America as far as history. Wow. Some friends found the bell. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to give it a thumbs up. That helps me out. Also, if it was your first time here, feel free to subscribe below. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for sticking to the end. Let me know what you enjoyed. What was your favorite part of the video? Let me know if I missed something. I don't live too far from here, and I will be back to Oak Ridge. I saw a lot of things here amongst my journey today that I want to check out. So there's always much ahead, not just here in Oak Ridge, but here in Oak Ridge and beyond. Thank you so much for watching. It was fun to finally track down this history and learn a lot today, and I did. I hope you did too. All right, guys, know you're awesome, know you're loved, and no matter who you are, and no matter what you're going through, just know that there's always much ahead. Thank you so much for watching. Ended up being a beautiful day. It's 48 degrees out here, not too cold. Perfect. Enjoying the mild winters of East Tennessee. Not too bad. All right. Bye, guys. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.